In 2018, Brian started a successful side business, wholesaling products on Amazon. Since then, he's made a ton of money doing it. But how does he do it, even in the most competitive niches? Well, in this video, I asked Brian to reveal his step-by-step process. So make sure to stick around because during our chat, he shared a lot of really great pro tips that will help you land your first wholesale account.
Really, the point is to just prove that you can help improve their business and improve their sales, because if you can't do anything like that, then they're not going to answer you again.
Hey Brian, how's it going?
Hey Jake, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Awesome. What's your process for finding winning wholesale products?
Yeah, so the beginning of my process is by using a product research tool. So in this case, I'm using Jungle Scout's product database tool that allows you to choose specific categories, specific filters such as price points, revenue, minimum number of sales, and so on. So you can really narrow down the types of products or price points that you're looking for. In product database, you have the option to select every category in here, but that'll typically give you, thousands of results. And that makes it a little more difficult to scan through products. So I'll go one at a time. And then onto the right-hand side, you'll see the filters. Typically, I start with standard size because they're just easier to ship. The storage fees are a little lower. God forbid you get an oversized product and it sits in Amazon's warehouse for too long and you're getting charged extra storage fees. So for seller type, I'm going to click on FBA and FBM. For wholesale products, you're trying to avoid products that Amazon themselves is listing on because it makes it harder to compete. And speaking of sellers, I'm going to go to the sellers filter in product database. So for here, I put the minimum sellers at 3, and that identifies a wholesale or an arbitrage opportunity. So what I mean by that is when you come across a listing on Amazon and you see only 1 or 2 sellers, that typically tells you it's a private label product or the brand themselves sells the product on Amazon. I'll set the minimum to 3, but I'll leave the maximum open. And that is because the good profitable product may have 15 or 20 different sellers on that listing. So if I set a maximum there, it's going to prevent me from finding that potential product. And then for the minimum number of sales, I'll do 300 units a month. So if a product listing has an average of 300 sales per month, and then there's 10 sellers, and if all sellers are equally sharing the buy box, that means I'll get around, maybe 30, 40 sales per month. But it's not a hard set rule because the number of sellers on a particular listing can change at any time. So typically the listings that perform really, really well, say 1,000 units per month and more, there's going to be more brands or more sellers going after those types of products. And you might see more, say 10 plus sellers under that particular listing if they're able to find that inventory. And the next filter in the product database I'll use is the listing quality score. So you'll see that on the bottom right-hand side in the filters. So listing quality is basically just the quality of the listing on Amazon, and Jungle Scout product database will give you a score based on a number of factors, typically like number of images, the listing bullet points, the character length and all that. So for wholesale opportunities, I tend to look for products that kind of have a poor listing quality. So maybe something that has, just 2 or 3 images, maybe the title isn't properly optimized and the bullet points aren't great. Maybe they have a low number of reviews or whatever. So for the max listing quality score, I'll typically go with a 5 or a 6 to start out with. This will also help narrow down your results as well in product database. And the reasoning behind this is when you're contacting brands to open up a wholesale account with, you're going to need some leverage to convince them to open up an account because they probably get hundreds of requests a month of people trying to resell their products. So if you could find a brand that has some poor quality listings, you can go in and say, hey, I can optimize your listings. I can get you better product images. I can help your listings and products perform better and help you get more sales. So that's kind of where the logic around there comes from. You don't have to do that. That's kind of a good starting point. If you're not getting a ton of results, you can, maybe not use that filter or bump the quality score up to a 7 or an 8 and see what happens there. But if you want to start out looking for low quality listings, I think that'll help you get a better chance of getting approved for a wholesale account in the future. And the next filter I'm going to go for is the price point. So typically I set a minimum price point here at least $20 to $25. Anything lower than that likely won't find anything that's profitable. And something to make note of here is you're not going to know if that product will be profitable or not until you get a price list from a brand or a wholesaler. So this is just a good kind of minimum price point here. You would typically kind of want to find something higher there too, but at that price point, you can find products that are still profitable as long as you could get it for, a good wholesale cost. I don't usually set a maximum here. You can if you don't want to go over a certain dollar amount or you have a smaller budget to start with. And then as far as filters go here, that's pretty much where I end it. as I go through the search results here, and maybe there's a brand or some products that I don't want to see in the results. So I'll take those brand names or some certain keywords and enter them into the exclude keywords filter in product database and then research. And that'll help you kind of narrow down your search even more.
So to recap Brian's strategy, these are the filters he uses in product database. Feel free to either take a screenshot of this, or you can actually save it as a preset inside your own Jungle Scout account. Now, if any of this was confusing to you, Brian actually wrote a complete guide over on the blog that will walk you through every single step of the wholesale process. It's very beginner friendly, so feel free to check out this article with the link in the pinned comment down below. Now, Brian, once all of your filters are in place here and you hit search, what are some of the things you're looking for to identify good wholesale products?
Yeah, so I'm going to look at the revenue. First of all, I want to see a high revenue number. I'm going to look at the monthly sales. Obviously, we set ours here in this example to 300 minimum. So that's what product database is going to show us. And next, I'm going to look at the number of sellers. So if I see something maybe, 5 to 6 seller range and it has a good monthly sale count, say 400 or 500 units, the higher the better. I'll start there. Another thing I'm looking at here is the buy box owner. So if the brand name and the seller name are the same, that tells me that the brand themselves is selling on this listing. And that can either mean that they don't want other third-party sellers on their listing, or that they also sell on the listing and allow third-party sellers. That could kind of be a conflict there because, say you have a good wholesale account with them, and then one day they decide that, no, we're just going to do it ourselves. And, then you lose that account. So I'm typically looking for products and brands that aren't sold by the brand themselves. All right. And another thing, I'm going to look for small to medium sized businesses and not big brands, Nike and Apple. You're not going to get a wholesale account with a big brand like that. When you're scrolling through Amazon or you're going through product database, if you haven't heard of this specific brand before, that should probably tell you that it's a small to medium sized business. And when you're going after a brand like this, you'll have a better shot of getting approved for a wholesale account. And then once I find something that I'm interested in within product database, you can link right to the Amazon listing. So I'll go there and take a look at the listing. And on the listing, I'm looking for a couple things. One, I'm going to look at the quality. I'm going to look at, the number of images and, how the listing looks overall. The reviews, reviews aren't super important when selling wholesale products, but you don't want something that is constantly getting negative reviews because you might get stuck with, some inventory down the line that doesn't sell because it's just a poor quality product. Another a good thing to mention when I'm searching for wholesale products, I tend to look for products that have MAP pricing, and MAP pricing means minimum advertised price. So the brands will set pricing guidelines, and that's the minimum price point that you can sell that product at. A good way to identify a MAP pricing product is something that's, priced at, $19.99. A product that ends in 99 cents, 95 cents, 90 cents, all uniform. And you'll typically notice that with all the other sellers on the listing. So if every seller is listed at, say, $29.99, that tells you that there's MAP pricing there and they're not allowed to sell lower than that price point. And that's also great for you because it kind of gives you a built-in profit margin, again, as long as you could purchase that at a profitable wholesale cost.
Now, an important thing to note here is that Brian actually repeats this entire process on a regular basis. Once or twice a week, he revisits the product database to look for more opportunities. When he finds something new that meets his criteria, he adds it to his list of products to continue researching. For this, he uses Product Tracker, another Jungle Scout tool that makes it easy to organize all of your ideas in one place. And unlike spreadsheets, it automatically tracks key metrics like average daily sales, price, and even Amazon fees. Or you can dive deeper into a graph and view units sold, rank, and price to help you better understand how a product performs over time. This is the data that Brian uses to confirm whether or not a product is worth exploring. And once he's confident that he found that winning product, he then moves it over to the next step of the process, which is contacting the brand. Brian, when you're reaching out to these brands, what requirements do they typically look for?
Before you send any emails or make any contact, one, you're going to need a couple things, such as a reseller's permit, and you could get that through your state. It's really easy to do. You can also go through an attorney or legalzoom.com, something like that. They can typically help you do it, but I'm pretty sure it's free if you do it through your state. So I would look into that. But when you contact a brand and looking to open a wholesale account, they're going to look for at least a reseller's permit. And the reason they're asking for a reseller's permit is you can purchase inventory from them, sales tax free. And that is because you're going to be reselling those products and you're going to end up collecting sales tax because you're the business that's selling that to the end consumer. So that's going to be number one. Number two is get a professional email address. You don't want to contact the brand with an @Gmail, @Hotmail.com address, because they're going to see that, you're not serious, or maybe you're not a legitimate business. That'll help you stand out a little bit more as well. And getting a professional email address is super easy. You just need to own the domain name. You could go to GoDaddy or Google Domains or something and purchase the domain, typically like $10 to $20 a year. And then with Google G Suite, you can then create a professional email address. You do have to pay for it, but it's cheap. It's cheap to have a professional email address, and then you have peace of mind that, the brand will take you seriously. And another thing, since you're going to have the domain name, I wouldn't say this is completely necessary, but I think it does help. I think it does help you stand out, is have a simple one-page website to showcase your business. You can use this as a place to show the brand, what you're capable of and what you bring to the table, such as listing optimization, product photography, A+ content, advertising, and so on.
Now, Brian, how do you go about finding the brand's contact information?
So this process is actually going to be a lot simpler than some might think. It's just a simple Google search. So if I find a brand that I'm interested in working with, I'll search for the brand on Google and find their website. 9 times out of 10, you will find a website. Sometimes you won't. And in that case, their product is probably sold through, a distributor or wholesaler. But in a perfect world, they're going to have a website. And then I'll go, once I visit their website, I'm going to look for like a wholesale portal. If they don't have a wholesale portal, I'll just simply find a contact form or an email or something, and then open up with a very simple email. So that email, I'll just introduce myself, say I'm interested in opening a wholesale account, and just ask for whatever documents that they require from me to open up an account. And you'll get an answer with that most of the time. If you don't get an answer, that's when you can look for a phone number and somebody actually contact on the phone. I know that might be intimidating for some people, but that's a really great way to kind of stand out and just, get your point across and to really get a yes, because it's going to be hard to get yeses in the beginning. So definitely don't be afraid to get on the phone and talk to somebody. A big thing with some of these brands is what turns them off about Amazon sellers, because a lot of them, they come across as just vultures. They want to just take a piece of that pie. They want to just, earn a little bit of profit off of your brand and not provide the brand with any benefit. So you need to come in to the brand and show them that you could provide them with some kind of benefit. My next step would probably just be send them another follow-up email, give them a little more information like, hey, I notice your product sells well on Amazon, but I also noticed that, your listing needs some work. Don't insult them either. You don't want to insult their product, but say, hey, I think your listing has a lot of potential. Your product has a lot of potential, and what I can do can really help your sales improve. Really, the point is to just prove that you can help improve their business and improve their sales, because if you can't do anything like that, then they're not going to answer you again.
Hopefully you caught what Brian just said, because it's arguably the most important part of this entire video. The key ingredient to landing wholesale accounts is to add free value to their business. Your offer should come across as a win-win for both parties. And like Brian suggested, a really great way of doing this is by offering to optimize their listing. So how do you actually do that? Well, we do already have a few tutorials on this channel over listing optimization. However, I think it will be helpful if I do just a really quick demo of how you can prepare a listing optimization plan. Using this listing as an example here, I think it could really benefit from a lot of different things. So if I was going to optimize this listing, the first place I would start is the images. It's by far the most impactful edit that you can make to any listing, and that's optimizing the photos. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of just basic imagery going on. In fact, only the first image is showing what the product actually does in a lifestyle way. So what I would do first is probably add some lifestyle images, go out to my car and put my water bottle down on this product and really show what it looks like in action. For inspiration for this, you can go to competitors in the niche. So here's one I found that does a really good job at essentially using basic images and showing here's a before and after, but really like even these images right here are just plain white background, and they're just adding, graphics and text to it. So we could come back and use these images still and just modify them, make them better and highly converting. So something as simple as calling out the double layer design or zooming in on a feature and adding these little graphics here here. And then you just go to your car really quickly and just take a couple before and after photos or lifestyle images. That's what I would do, is I would draw inspiration from competitors just like this. So the second thing I would do now is add a video. There's not currently a video on this listing, or actually even the competitor's listing, so that would give us a competitive advantage there. For inspiration on what to do for a video, this doesn't have to be crazy. In fact, usually when you scroll down the page, you'll see, yeah, here we go. Some videos that are very similar. This is a different product, of course, but as you can see, I can just go out to my car and make essentially a TikTok video showing the product in use. Over here, this video is a really good example of just using images. You could just repurpose your images and add text and animations to it. And this can be done for free on Canva or any other editing software. So that's the first things I would do, is edit the photo, the videos. Those are gonna be the most impactful edits you can make to any listing. But then some simple, quick ones that I would do. I can tell right away there's hardly any keywords being utilized in the most important section on the listing, and that's the title. Even coming down here to the bullet points, there's only, what, 3 bullet points there. And then scrolling down to the product description, there's just a single line, not even a full sentence, of, I guess, like what this could be used for, which cars it can be used for, just a Toyota Highlander. So that's a really simple change. And again, I would draw inspiration from this competitor here, who's got a bunch of awesome keywords in the title. They got 5 full bullet points, and then coming down to the description, they're using A+ content. So this is great. I would add A+ content by repurposing images or taking new ones. And then you can see they're adding a bunch more text here that's going to be crawlable for the Amazon algorithm to identify this product and to help it rank higher. So there's all these different keywords, all these different images that are going to be awesome to help it convert, but also bring in more customers to the listing. So how would you go about actually optimizing this listing? Well, where I would start is I would go to that listing and click search keywords. So this will bring you to Keyword Scout, another Jungle Scout tool that helps you find the keywords that customers are using to buy this type of product. So as you can see, there's about 31 keywords, which really isn't that many, that customers are using on Amazon to buy this type of product. And here we can see it's sorted by search volume, so the highest volume keywords at the top, and then to the right, you can see where this product ranks organically. So out of 50,000 organic products, this product ranks 84, 48, 87, so really high on page 2, 3, or 4, and so on. None of these, at least so far, I see are in the top 10. In fact, let me actually just check that real quick. You can use these filters, and what I wanna see real quick is how many of these products are ranked in the top 10. So here, if I put 10 as the maximum, out of those 31 keywords, only 3 of them are ranked in the top 10 here. So 5, 6, and 6. But as you can see, the search volume is really low for these keywords. So this listing needs an overhaul. I'm gonna actually remove this filter here so I get all those keywords back. And what I'm gonna do now is, because we only have 31 keywords, is go over to that competitor that we liked, copy that ASIN, and pull it into Keyword Scout. Paste it there, click search. Now you can actually add up to 10 competitors in the search bar, but I just got one for the sake of time here. But you can see that improved our keyword list now to 68 unique keywords. So what I'm gonna do now is save all of these keywords to a keyword list. Now with those keywords saved, let's hop over to another Jungle Scout tool, this time Listing Builder. So this is a tool that helps you write completely optimized listings, and you can do it with AI. So it's really cool and fun and easy, and it makes sense for this video because I can show you really quickly. I'm gonna start with an ASIN, and you can just come over here, copy the ASIN that you're optimizing, plug it in here. And what that's going to do is extract that listing and put the copy where it needs to go. So in the title, bullet points, and description. Now it doesn't know the backend search terms, of course, so we'll have to add that in later. But right here, I can see that the title and everything else is entered in, but I want to select that keyword list that I just created. So let's go ahead and do that here. Click next step. And now we have a keyword bank of our highest volume keywords in green. You can see the search volume next to it, and also which keywords are already used. So out of our highest volume keywords, only one of these keywords are actually used in our listing so far. And then we see the medium volume keywords in yellow and lowest volume in gray. So when you're optimizing a listing, I want you to come over here to the right actually, and use this listing optimization score box. It's gonna help guide you to figure out what you need to do to improve this listing. So right now this listing is a 1 out of 10. We need to get it to at least probably a 6, 7, or 8, or 9 define before we present it to the brand. And the way you do that is you follow this checklist here. The first one is the product title. You want the product title to be at least 160 characters, but no more than 200. And this product is at 67. Moving on to the bullet points, you want a minimum of 5 features or 5 bullet points, but this product only has 3. And then you want them to be in between, again, 160 and 200 so it can be crawlable, but also short enough to help convert. Next, moving on to the product description, if you're not using A+ content, you're just using text, which is completely fine, you want to make sure you have a lot of text there, so in between 1,000 and 2,000 characters. Again, this one only has 79 characters, so we need to work on that. And then out of all these keywords over here in the keyword bank, ideally you'd use at least 70% of them. And right now we're only using 3%. And then down here you have the backend search terms and the product images. So the product images, of course, will be added separately. And then the backend search terms, just real quick on this, once we're done optimizing this listing, you would add all the keywords that you haven't already used in this list in your backend keywords. So we won't get to that right now. I want to start with the title. And for us to go through and edit this listing, it's going to take a long time. However, there's a really awesome tool here called AI Assist that Jungle Scout released, and it lets you optimize your listing with a click of a button. So it's using OpenAI technology and grabbing these keywords over in your keyword bank to craft a highly converting listing. And as you can see, it already generated a title for me. So what we can do is you could generate it again, or you could replace the content like I'm gonna do now, and you wanna edit it a little bit. So I can see right here, it added in the competitor's brand name. I wanna go ahead and delete that, and I wanna work with this a little bit more, but for the sake of time, I'll keep it here. It's actually looking really good. I'll need to obviously add something right here for the Toyota keyword, but then let's move on to the product features. We got that green check mark here. We're in between 160 and 200. Okay, now let's come down here to the bullet points, and again, clicking AI Assist, but this time it would generate bullet points for all 5 of these. So I'm just gonna replace content here, accept all these changes. And then again, you'll need to come back and edit this, of course, but right away I can see that I'm already using so much more keywords than we were using before. We're about 60% of our keywords used just by using our bullet points here to the full capacity. So let me actually get rid of some of these characters here and get us within that range. Okay, and just like that, now we have our bullet points all filled out, 5 features, all within the range, and we're already at a 5 out of 10, so a fair listing just by the bullet points. Now let's come down here to the lasting description. This is typically the hardest one to fill out, especially if you're trying to reach that 1 to 2,000 character range. And that's why I love AI Assist, is because it's gonna write that for me just like ChatGPT would. But unlike ChatGPT, it's able to use my highest volume keywords and really all these keywords in the keyword bank here to my advantage to help me convert and also bring in more customers to my listing. So I've implemented that here, and it's about 1,300 keywords within 30 seconds maybe. This whole listing could basically be done within a minute or 2. So really quickly, this is how you would optimize a listing in terms of getting it ready to send out to the brand for approval. Now, when you actually send that email, you can exit Listing Builder and come over here and download it as a CSV file. Now, once that's downloaded and you open it up, it looks something just like this. So this is a file that you can send to that brand. Now, again, this was just a really quick demo, but hopefully it was still helpful. If so, let me know by hitting the like button down below. And also, like I mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of other in-depth tutorials here on the channel that you can watch, or if you'd prefer, Brian actually wrote a full guide over on the blog that will walk you through how to optimize any product listing. Along with all the other resources mentioned in this video, you can find this in the pinned comment down below. Okay, Brian, so say this strategy works and the brand agrees to sell you their inventory. What's the next step to opening a wholesale account?
So then say you get a response and they ask you for all your business documents and you send it to them, and then the answer is a yes, that's great. But that also doesn't mean that those products will be profitable. So my next step here is to ask for a pricing sheet. Usually they'll send it if they approve you or they say yes, after the few initial emails. So you're going to get the pricing list and then actually look at the pricing that they offer and compare it to Amazon's sales price. So at this point, Amazon has a free revenue calculator as well. So if you go to Google and type in FBA revenue calculator, it'll bring up a form where you can, fill out your buy costs and any other costs you have, and then enter in whatever the sales price is for that product. And Amazon will break down what the profitability is of that product. And for me, when I'm searching for wholesale products, I'm typically looking for products that have a minimum of a 15 to 20% profit margin after everything, after all Amazon fees, FBA fees, shipping fees, product costs. But this is not including advertising. So one good thing about the wholesale business model is you'll likely not do much PPC advertising on Amazon. So, with this, you're not launching a brand new product. That's why I'm looking for products that sell 300 times a month, because once you send inventory to Amazon or create a listing under that ASIN, you're likely going to get sales pretty much right away, as long as you're, priced competitively within the buy box price. So yeah, that's the minimum I'm looking for. And if I say I want to do some advertising, maybe the listing doesn't perform as well, but that's one of the promises you made to the brand, that you'll help them improve their sales, and you're going to maybe do some PPC advertising. I try to look for something that's maybe a minimum of a 30% profit margin, just to leave some room for advertising costs. All right. So the next thing I'm going to look at in the pricing sheet is what other products does this brand offer? So, initially I find this one product, through product database, but they likely have other products too that they offer. So if you have the budget and you're able to purchase, inventory from other products, I think that's a great starting point as well. But if you just want to, start out small with this brand, maybe get your feet wet, just see how it goes, then stick with that one product. And I think another good thing to mention here is before you actually purchase any inventory, plug in the ASIN into your Seller Central account, just as you were adding a product. So you go to add a product, plug in the ASIN, and this will show you whether or not you're gated or restricted to selling that particular brand or that particular category or whatever the case may be. But that's not a bad thing either. So that's not me telling you just, don't sell this brand anymore. Since you already have approval, you're able to either get an approval letter from that brand to send to Amazon. Because if you're restricted or gated in a brand or a category, you typically have a process to get approved. And Amazon either wants an approval letter or they want an invoice with at least 10 units ordered, but they'll tell you exactly what they're looking for that particular category. And it's usually a pretty easy process. So, and you can also do this before you even start contacting brands too. But before you purchase any inventory, just make 100% sure that you are able to sell that brand or category and you do get approved. And from there, yeah, you could purchase some inventory.
On that note, Brian, if this is someone's first time buying inventory, especially from a new supplier, how much inventory should they be buying?
Yeah. So, and when you get approved with brands and when you're working with brands, a lot of them might have a MOQ or minimum order quantity. Usually it's not very high. Some might require you purchase 100 units. You can usually negotiate with this, but just be aware that there might be a minimum number or minimum unit amount that you need to order. If you can order a small amount just to test it out, or if you're confident that this brand is going to do really well, then you can order a larger amount. I typically like to carry at least a 3-month supply just to ensure I have enough to, cover the sales for a couple months and then reorder when I need to.
And then Brian, what does that process look like for actually buying the inventory?
Some of these brands, they might actually have a wholesale portal or a wholesale section of their website where you can simply go on and place an order as needed without having to go through, say a sales rep or contacting anybody. In this case, it's super easy. You can plug in how many units you want and place an order just like you would on any other website. In some cases, some brands or wholesalers might allow payment terms. So that's something that you'll, work out with whatever brand or supplier you're working with. For myself, I typically just pay everything up front just to have the inventory and not worry about paying, the brand back down the line. But that's, again, something that you can work out with any brand or supplier that you're working with. And another thing, obviously, to factor in is the shipping costs. You can either have the brand ship the products for you directly to an Amazon FBA fulfillment center. This would be the best case scenario for you because there wouldn't be, double the shipping costs that you cover. So yeah, just work with your brand and see if that's something that they can do. If that's the case, just, you go into your Seller Central account, create a shipment, and get the proper labels and send them over to them. And just double check with the brand as well that they understand Amazon's, packaging requirements. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So that just makes things easier for you. So there's no hiccups, once the inventory arrives. And obviously, as you're ordering your inventory and before you send anything to Amazon, you need to have the product listing created. So you could just simply take the ASIN of that product, go to add a product in Seller Central and plug it in there and add it to your product catalog in Seller Central. So when you create your shipment, you just choose whatever ASIN that you're sending inventory for, and then you're good to go there. And then once you have the listing created and inventory reaches Amazon is when you could start to work on optimizing the listing. So if that's something you and the brand agreed upon, work on creating a listing or maybe getting some product photography done. Jungle Scout has a great tool that I use sometimes too, the listing builder, and even better with the AI assist there too. So if you're not great at writing a listing, I use that as well just to create a quick optimized listing that I could plug into Amazon. My next steps is just managing that inventory. So again, with Jungle Scout, I use the inventory manager tool. So I just keep track of all the inventory I have and keep track of the sales. And it'll just kind of remind me of when I need to reorder inventory. So like I mentioned before, I try to keep at least a 3-month supply on hand. So when it's getting low, maybe around to a month or two, depending on how fast the brand can ship the products. Typically they're US based, so they could ship within a couple days and it should reach your location or Amazon, fairly quickly. So I don't worry too much about that. But, once it gets low, I'll reorder from there. And then, the next step is to just really just rinse and repeat. With the wholesale model, you're not going to get rich off of one product. Yeah, it's super possible. You could find one product that, makes you 5 or 10,000 a month in profit. Definitely possible. But I think it's really good to start with some products that may, 500 a month or $1,000 a month. The game here is volume. The more products you have, the more money you're going to make, the more profit you're going to bring in. If the first product does well, reinvest into buying more inventory for that product and then reinvest it into a second or a third or a fourth product. And, until you have a large catalog of products there. The key is to just, keep finding new brands to work with. Don't take no for an answer. You can't contact 1 or 2 brands expecting a yes. So you got to contact hundreds and hundreds of brands, and as you get a little more experience, say your business is growing, another thing you can do, just a quick tip is, hire a virtual assistant to do product research for you, train them on, how to use the tool, what filters you're using, and then have them fill everything out into a spreadsheet. They can even send emails for you and just kind of help you automate the whole process. But when you're just starting out, it's, super simple. You just have to put in the work. It may take a few hours a night, but the more effort you put into it, the more brands you're going to get accepted. Now, while the wholesale model is great and can make you a lot of money, one of the downsides is you need to contact a ton of brands. You also need to share listings with other sellers. But once you get your business rolling, you start making some money and you want to parlay that into your own brand and either make some more money. There's another model called the private label model where you create your own brand, your own product listing. You're the only seller on that listing. So you're not sharing your sales with any other brand or any other seller. And that's a great way to build a profitable product on Amazon, much higher profit margins. If you want to learn more about that, check out the next video. We talk all about private label and how to launch your own brand on Amazon.
Awesome. Thanks again, Brian.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
See ya.